Okay, let's dive right into this explainer, because we're going to fundamentally shift how you view something as totally mundane as waking up in the middle of the night. Think about it. Tonight, when the sun goes down, you're probably going to just flip a switch. Light floods the room, and, you won't even think twice about it. But what if I told you that that one simple action has completely erased an entire phase of human consciousness? Let's explore what we actually left behind in the dark.
So just consider this really stark contrast for a second. For 99.9% of human history, that magic little light switch simply didn't exist. When the sun set, the world went completely, terrifyingly dark. For over 300,000 years, every single one of your ancestors spent roughly half their lives in a darkness so absolute they couldn't even see their own hand in front of their face. There was just the black sky, the stars, and eventually, fire. So what did they actually do for all those hours?
Section 1. Fire and Human Culture. The Spark of Civilization. To really understand what we lost, we first have to understand what we gained, and that starts with the million-year-old ashes of Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa, which is where humans first tamed fire.
Now, before fire, our ancestors were pretty much just like every other primate out there. When the sun went down, you hid. Why? Well, because our eyes are honestly terrible in the dark compared to the predators that hunted us. Leopards, hyenas, wolves, they could see us just fine. But a campfire, that created a literal 30-foot circle of safety. Inside that 30-foot diameter, you were absolutely safe.
Outside that circle, well, you literally become food. And hey, this isn't just some ancient reality either. Even today, anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer groups note that wandering away from the safety of the fire at night significantly increases your chances of being killed by predators. The dark was respected. It was deadly. So, the crucial point here is that fire didn't just provide safety and warmth. It gave our ancestors the totally unprecedented gift of extra time. Before fire, your useful day just ended at sunset. Bam, over. Fire suddenly added 2 to 4 usable hours to every single day, and over thousands of generations, those extra hours completely changed our species.
Anthropologist Polly Wisner published this absolutely fascinating study in 2014 about the Kalahari Bushmen, who are one of the last groups living close to our original human lifestyle. She found that during the day, 80% of all conversation is strictly practical labor and logistics. Who's hunting where, which plants are ready. It's all just economic negotiation and hard work.
But look at how this changes around the campfire at night. The entire character of human interaction just completely flips. Under the stars, 81% of conversations magically transformed into stories, myths about the origins of the world, tales of distant adventures, and jokes.
As Wisner argued, this extra time around the fire is literally where human culture was born. It was the original theater, the original classroom, the original church. The night taught humans to think beyond the immediate stressful present of daily survival and to imagine things that didn't exist yet. It's quite literally where we became us.
Section 2. The Lost Sleep Cycle. A Biological Reality. Let's see how this builds into just an incredible historical revelation. Because the night wasn't just about telling stories around the fire. Something else was happening in the dark that science only rediscovered in the last 30 years.
Ready for a mind bender? You were not designed to sleep the way you sleep right now. In 2001, historian Roger E. Eckerich completely shocked the sleep science community. After 16 years of digging through historical records, he uncovered over 500 references documenting a phenomenon known as first and second sleep. These references were everywhere too, from 1400s prayer books and court records to passages in Homer's Odyssey.
Before the industrial age, a normal night's schedule wasn't this solid 8-hour block that we obsess over today. People went to bed shortly after sunset and slept for about 4 hours. Then, they woke up for 1 to 2 hours right in the middle of the night, a period often called the watch, before going back to sleep for another 4 hours until dawn. This wasn't insomnia. This was just normal life.
And what did people do during this midnight window? Well, they certainly didn't panic about being awake like we do today. A 16th century French physician actually highly recommended this time for conceiving children. People visited neighbors, interpreted their dreams while they were still super fresh, or simply lay in the dark and thought. One doctor's manual from the 1500s even advised that this quiet hour was the absolute best time to study and reflect.
What's wild is that historians had been reading these exact references for centuries.
But our modern assumptions about an unbroken 8-hour sleep were so deeply ingrained that translators literally mistranslated ancient Greek and medieval Latin texts. They entirely missed this ancestral sleep pattern because they couldn't even imagine that humans ever slept differently than we do right now.
Section 3. Science backs history. The Weir experiment. History is only half the story here, though. Let's look at how modern science completely backed up these ancient texts. In 1992, psychiatrist Thomas Weir ran a totally fascinating experiment at the National Institute of Mental Health. He took volunteers and completely removed artificial light from their lives. For a full month, they experienced 14 hours of darkness every single night, basically mimicking the winter nights of our ancestors. And guess what happened? Within weeks, every single participant naturally settled into the exact same pattern. 4 hours of sleep, 1 to 3 hours of quiet wakefulness, and 4 more hours of sleep. Nobody told them to do this. Their bodies just remembered.
But Weir went further and actually measured their hormone levels during this midnight wakeful period. He found it wasn't just a gap in sleep, it was a biological reality. It was a highly peaceful, completely distinct state of consciousness. The participants' brains were producing elevated levels of prolactin, which is the exact same hormone released during deep meditation. It was a calm, reflective state entirely foreign to most modern humans.
Section 4. The cost of light. Losing the dark. So how on earth did we manage to lose an entire, biologically programmed state of human consciousness?
Well, it was light. We can trace the rapid acceleration of artificial light directly through history. It started in the 1600s when Paris began installing street lamps to reduce crime. Then came cheaper candles, then gas lamps in the 1800s. Finally, in 1879, Thomas Edison commercialized the electric light bulb. And just like that, within a few generations, a rhythm humans had known for 300,000 years was completely wiped out.
Before we conquered the night, the dark was something to be profoundly respected. Have you ever wondered where the word curfew comes from? It actually derives from the medieval French couvre-feu, which literally translates to cover fire. The ringing of the curfew bell wasn't just some town rule. It meant you had to extinguish your light and submit to the vulnerability of the dark. The night belonged to sleep, to nature, and to the supernatural. But then we flooded it with light, and we called it progress.
But look at the massive modern biological disruption this so-called progress caused. Today, modern humans are exposed to an average of 7 to 8 hours of artificial light after sunset. The constant barrage of blue light from our screens actively suppresses our body's production of melatonin. I mean, your brain literally doesn't know the difference between an LED screen and the actual sun. So when you're scrolling at 11 p.m., your brain thinks it's still daytime, deeply fragmenting your sleep and completely disrupting a million-year-old circadian rhythm.
Amazingly, though, that ancient programming is still right there inside us, just waiting to be reactivated. Researchers have found that spending just 1 week camping out in nature with absolutely zero artificial light resets your body's melatonin cycle by nearly 2 full hours. Your body starts producing melatonin at sunset again, exactly like it was originally meant to.
And honestly, this brings us to the most tragic part of this whole story. We didn't just change our bedtimes, guys. We eliminated an entire phase of human consciousness. That beautifully quiet, reflective, meditative state between first and second sleep. We traded our ancestral rhythms in the starry skies for a glowing screen. And the craziest part, when our bodies naturally try to wake up in the middle of the night to experience that peaceful state, we panic, we grab our phones, and we treat it like a medical disorder called insomnia.
So I want to leave you with this really provocative thought to reflect on tonight. What if waking up at 2 a.m. and lying there in the dark isn't a disorder at all? What if it's not your body malfunctioning, but rather your biology remembering exactly what it was built to do? The next time you wake up in the pitch black, maybe don't immediately reach for the glowing light of your phone. Instead, try just lying there in the silence and listen to the ancient programming of your own history.